Hi, I'm Brian, and this is a quick familiarity on the Heartstream FR2, which is being placed in the community, in the Ananda community in Seattle. By now, or sometime surrounding the time that you watch this video, you will be notified as to the location of this unit. It's not secret. It'll probably be very public to you by now. However, we'll make sure that you know where this is. The FR2 was originally designed for professional use in the field, which means a lot of things, good things mostly. That it's pretty ruggedized. It can tolerate, lots of environmental conditions. It can tolerate being dropped and stood on and things like that. It was made to be firefighter proof, so to speak. I obtained this one from a private citizen who ordered this, and from the factory, at which time it was programmed to be used by a lay person or a lay citizen. So a lot of the features that professionals would use on this are either overridden, or I simply have a piece of tape over things that would only be distracting for you to see and have no bearing on your ability to use this successfully. So a couple things I'd like you to notice simply by looking at this. First of all, this window right here has, I'll show you a close-up, where you can look to see either a black hourglass or a red X. Black hourglass means that the machine's internal devices are fine and the battery is fine. It's happy. It doesn't mean that the battery is not out of date. It just means it has plenty of energy in the event that there is an emergency. A red X might mean a bad battery, some other component inside of the machine. Typically, just by walking by and looking to see whether there's a red X or an hourglass is a nice consistent check for the machine. Once in a while people will put a washcloth inside the machine to wipe people off with. Simply make sure that if you decide to do so, that it's not covering this window from the inside. What does this thing look like? First of all, when you open the machine, you would typically lay this down next to somebody's head. But there's a little card inserted right here in the front. This card also matches these corresponding numbers down the side of the machine here. They simply remind you to turn the machine on, to follow the command prompts, and so those will usually come verbally or audio, and then the bottom one says press shock if indicated. That's this button right here. This machine is set up so that it cannot be overridden in any way. It can only shock ventricular fibrillation like any other unit. A couple differences. One thing that I've covered up here is an actual EKG screen. There's no reason for the lay rescuer to really need to see that, and it simply causes a distraction in a time when you really need to be focusing on the event as a whole. So I've covered that up, and then there's simply a resume analyze feature down here, which is also outside of your protocol as a lay citizen. Therefore, I've simply covered that up. These buttons here are also not for your use. They're more for programming and changing the time, things like that. That either I or somebody who's in charge of the machine will periodically come make sure that all that stuff is taken care of anyway. So those buttons. So the only two buttons really you have to be concerned with are the on button and the shock button. Simple enough. Eventually we'll have two sets of patches for each unit. Each set of patches has, if you'll notice, yeah, I don't know if it's backwards to you or not, but right there in the upper corner to you, right there where my finger is an expiration date. You'll notice these pads are expired if you can read upside down or backwards. However, this is what the package looks like here. It simply opens up pretty easily from a little tab right here. It has a place, a jack to pull it out and to insert in this location right here. Also on each pad, you can see right there it shows the little guy that shows you where to put the patches, and on each individual pad it'll show you where that certain pad is to be placed. Also, right here is a speaker where the audio commands will come out. That can't be adjusted by you normally. Right here, in the very top of the machine, is where the battery inserts in and out. So once we do end up with a spare battery, which will likely be placed right here in the lid, if for some reason you get a red X, one thing you might try is to reinsert the battery, or it might tell you that the battery is bad. And you can simply reach in, push up, pull the battery out, where you'll also notice the expiration date on the battery. So this one's expired, but the machine is happy with how much energy it has in it, so we're going to leave this here for now. It'll want to do a self-test if you take it in or out, and that just uses battery space, so try to avoid that unless you have a red X. Okay. Here on the side, you have a little IR window. I've never known what that's for, but you also have a little memory card. That's also for the professional rescuers' use, and within time this will just get full from turning the machine on or off. However, if you do use it on an incident, fire department comes, somebody may ask if they can retain this for a little while, and so it may have recorded all of the voice from your incident from the time you turn the machine on, how many shocks, when you've done CPR, all sorts of things like that. We can also get a little card reader that erases it, and you can evaluate it and stuff like that. Otherwise, no terrible concern to you as the lay rescuer. This thing is anchored inside the pouch. No really reason to get to the back of it. At some point I'll encourage people to use this right here, which is a little check sheet that will tell you, we'll have a little record on who's checked it, when they've checked it, and that kind of thing. What kinds of things to check, you might ask? Well, number one, I mentioned the pads, to make sure that the expiration dates are good on the pads. Very important, because on the patches themselves is a conductive gel that eventually goes bad, just like a carton of milk. Whoever is in charge of the unit itself will periodically check the battery for its expiration date, things like that. Nothing, I don't think, that you will have to worry about at this point. Larry largely will be in charge of that, or whoever, or in charge of whoever is dealing with it. Lastly, connected to the unit is a little goodie bag here. This bag contains within it a pair of trauma shears to cut shirts off, underwires, things like that. Chest must be bare. A dry razor, in case the patient is too hairy, you can dry shave them for the patches. A barrier device with a one-way valve. Simply goes together like that. A couple pairs of gloves and germicidal wipe. So that's what you'll find in here typically. And then once again, as I mentioned, on the inside of the lid, I will encourage that I put a cloth or a towel or something inside here, as people may get a little bit sweaty during the incident. Once again, if you have any questions, you can contact me or Larry Ryder, and we'll be able to get you specific training on this device in person, which we should do every couple years anyway. So, thank you very much.